Hey guys, Roy here, and you are tuning in to the Balanced Male podcast series. Now, this episode is our seventh episode, and it is sort of an episode on just something that's been kind of rattling around in my brain for the last few months, and wanted to share it with you guys because I feel like it's applicable to our time now in society. And I think it's a pretty powerful thing to talk about. And it's centered on conversations and the words that we use when we're conversating with others. Now, this all started back uh, maybe a couple years ago with a conversation I had with a friend of mine. And we were talking about having kids, and specifically me having a kid, and we were kind of discussing being stay-at-home dads. And it's something that I've thought about, something that's been rattling around in my brain, and it was it's something that I think that could be a possibility in my life, if things worked out. But I was mentioning that to him, and he was telling me that it's pretty good for me specifically because my wife is the main breadwinner in the family, and my wife is a chiropractor, and I'm a public school teacher, and she makes more than me, and at the time I I didn't think too much of it, and the conversation went the way it was, and I don't remember that, but I do remember leaving, and just the idea of that word breadwinner just wouldn't go away. It just stuck with me. And I remember the when he said breadwinner, I got really, I don't know if insecure is the right word, but I felt like there was something, that word took something from me. And I know, first off, I know that this guy wasn't malicious in using that, but it took something, maybe a little bit of my confidence away, and I couldn't let go of it. And it had to do with the word winner. Now, I started to think about that, and I was like thinking, so if she's the winner, am I the loser? And I don't want to be looked at like that. But even the idea of her making more money than me, I noticed there was this part of me that it didn't sit well, because then I started to think, is that how people view me? That my wife is higher than me in some whatever hierarchy, or however this works out? And does she have more quote unquote power in the relationship? And it really took me down this sort of just dark place for a little bit. And and I just started to think about how long in our society we've used that word breadwinner. And and for the longest time, it was mainly the you would refer to men, they were the breadwinners in the family, and then the wives were the ones that sat at home. And and I wonder if that had something to do with how people view men versus women. It could be a part of that. And I mean, you guys, I really went down this rabbit hole, which is that word in society and the history of it and things like that. And what was so funny about all this is, well, a couple things. One, my wife has never taken that role and used it against me, and I don't think that she views herself that way. And I don't view her that way. And so that was funny. And then it was also funny, it was because I'm a male, and I'm having this conversation with myself, about being the stay-at-home dad and breadwinners and things like that, and even would I be okay with that? Would I be okay staying at home and taking that role and all of these things? And that's a conversation for another day. So what I began to see in all this was that the words that we use in conversations are powerful. And this person had no idea the effect that using the word breadwinner would have on someone like me. So I remember from this taking this to our therapist, and we were talking about that idea of breadwinners and relationships, and she brought up this really cool thing that helped my wife and I shift our conversation about this. And she talked about how a relationship is two people trying to make one thing work. That one thing is the relationship. And if you take that and say that one person does more or the other, well, then you're in this constant battle of checks and balances, and people feeling like they do more and they should have more input than this other person, and then there's strife and struggle, and there is no balance. But if the couple can look at the relationship as she used the imagery of a pot. So you have this pot, and that relationship is the pot, and it needs to be filled. And each person brings something to fill the pot. Now, some might make more money than the other person, so they're putting more money in there, and the other person might do more at home. But what was so powerful about this is not that it was more or less or anything, but that it brought the image in my head that, each person has to do their part. And it doesn't matter the size of that part or the amount of what they put in, but each person has to do what they need to do. And the relationship doesn't work if they don't do that. And if the person who might make less than the other person doesn't put their money in, then it still doesn't work, because that puts more pressure on the other person. And they're also, my bills might not get paid. And on the other hand, if the person who, takes on the role of going to the grocery store the most, if they don't do that, then you don't get fed. And as soon as I started thinking that and letting that conversation grow with my wife and I just remember feeling the freedom of, and I felt lighter, I felt powerful, and I was so grateful for that conversation. And that's when I realized the power in the words we use and letting go of words in conversations. And letting go of that word breadwinner opened up the door to such a great conversation for my wife and I to have about a relationship. And it's done nothing but build and strengthen and give us a foundation. And it shifted even the way that I look at the role of money in our relationship. And I noticed that, I don't have a problem with the fact that my wife makes more than me. When she's successful, we're successful. And I know that yes, in terms of dollars, there might be more on her part, but I still bring something to the table, and that's a powerful thing too. And it takes me continuing bringing that and filling my part of the pot to make the relationship work. And so, like I said in the beginning, this is not so much about my relationship as it is about conversations that we have. And so what I hope you guys see from that, and what I see from that, is the words that we use are powerful. There's this saying that I've put up in my classroom for years, and it just says the words create our reality. The words we use create a reality, I'm sorry. And words can tear down, words can build up, words can divide, and words can bring together. And it's something that I think is very applicable to today, because we're having such a big conversation really about words, and how words can be labels, and the labels that we use for people, and for everything. And so, you know, what I've found, and through that conversation and through that issue that I had with using that word and letting go of that word, is that, I can take this instance, this experience, and put it into any area of my life, and it works. And it's so powerful. And, where I didn't want this to take me, and where thinking about words, the words we use, can take us, is it can take us to a place of fear. We're afraid to talk to people. We're afraid to really conversate, because what if I say the wrong thing? Or what if this person thinks this way and they don't like what I have to say? And that's not a great place to be, because all that does is take you away from people, and it doesn't help build you up or build anybody up or bring people together. But where I think, or where I want this to take us, if you're listening, is just to the idea of to be open and to understand that the words that we use are powerful. And to know that it's not about, what this is not about is not being able to say what you want, as it is an awareness of the power of what you say. And so in a conversation, we're not perfect. And I might say something that offends them that I had no idea. It could be something I could, be talking with someone who is working on their identity of their gender. And I use a term, I say, "What's up, man?" or "Hey, guy." And they don't identify themselves as a guy. And they could come to me and say, "Excuse me, I identify as a woman." And so what I can do in that is say, "Oh, okay, I apologize." I could ask them, well, what word or term can I use when talking to you? And so in me saying that, being open and to that helps bridge that gap between me and this person. And then for them, or for us, if we are in a conversation, someone uses words or labels that we don't like, it's okay to be upset by it. And it's also okay to forgive them and be open to bridging that gap with them and helping them see what that word or what that label did to them. And in doing that, I think that we can really begin to transform the world through conversations. Something as small as a conversation transforming how we view people, how people view themselves. That's a pretty cool thing. And like I said, it really just takes an openness and an awareness of people, of yourself, taking a step back. But it's important, and I hope that we can find ways to communicate in ways that builds, in ways that creates, in ways that brings people together instead of dividing us, and instead of tearing down. And that's really all I've kind of have to say on this episode. I know it's been pretty quick, but I hope that you can find something to take for yourself in your day-to-day life. And as always, thank you for listening to my thoughts, and tune in for the next episodes, and go forth and be awesome.